what are the different degrees of consciousness? I now, according to your bio, you are now in the what degree of consciousness are you in? The ninth.
Yeah, which is Christ consciousness. You know, everybody is really born in the third and fourth level of consciousness, except for the star children, which you know they just kind of happen to come a little bit more ascended and tapped into higher levels. So there's 13 degrees. You know, you have your basic people, which are most of us walking through life in this third dimensional level of consciousness. And we're kind of stuck in this thought process, and really the whole purpose of the star children is to help us ascend to higher levels of consciousness. Because if we're all at Christ consciousness or we're all at universal consciousness, imagine what a better world we'd actually be living in if we actually all understood the law of one and all understood how interconnected we were. You know, how all that other stuff would kind of fall to the wayside. So then you have your you kind of ascend through that to the ninth level. That's like pretty much the next you know, the next big jump, which is Christ consciousness. And then after Christ consciousness, the final jump that you have is the 13th level of consciousness, which is universal consciousness, and that's pretty much what the rainbow children kind of come in being born at. And then obviously there's different levels that it's just kind of like spiritual upgrades that you're constantly kind of going through. And the star children also help by raising the vibration of pretty much the world and allowing other people to ascend into these higher levels of consciousness. So by our presence kind of being here, it's enabling other people to reach these higher levels of consciousness, which may not have been possible if it weren't for, you know, your indigos, your crystals, and your rainbow and whatever comes afterwards.
How can someone listening know if they're an indigo child or a crystal child or a rainbow child?
Well, I think that the key sides of things is really, if you're an indigo child, pretty much you've always had this warrior-like spirit, and you constantly challenge things, and you have this kind of built-in lie detector, you know, to where you kind of just know if somebody's BSing you or not, and you know, I mean, and you know when you're being patronized, and you know when somebody's just trying to like pull the wool over your eyes, or manipulate you. So indigos pretty much that's their type of mentality. Crystal children, they're really quick to forgive. Some of the crystals are now just reaching into like young or like younger adulthoods, like into their 20s and stuff. Even though we still call them children, you know, because some are still being born. Indigos have been around. Oh wow. I think the first big wave actually happened like around the 1970s, 1980s, and then, but that's not to say that there weren't indigos before that. You know, that kind of helped evolve things as it goes. So the crystals, they're really quick to forgive. You know, yeah, they have a little bit of a temper, you know, but it pretty much just goes, it falls, like they're just really loving, and they really, they get over things really quickly. So if you're one of those people who, you know, might have a blow up or an argument with somebody, and then at the end you pretty much wash your hands of it. You know, not a lot of people are like that. So if you're like that, odds are you're of the crystal, you know, vibration. And the rainbow children, they're pretty much just being born now. So you know, I would just pay attention to you know, your younger kids being born and how they're interacting with things. And I'm a big advocate of asking your child questions, you know, even at a young age. And I never believed in, you know, talking down to a baby or this baby talk that parents kind of do to their children. I always talked to my child just like one-on-one, and I never dumbed down my language or anything. So I think that that's really what parents need to do, because with this new evolution of children being born, the parents need to be ascended as well, so that they can nurture and care for these children, and really understand that if there's nothing really wrong with how your child's communicating with you, aside from what medical gurus say nowadays, is there really a reason to medicate these children? And if there's really no harm to the child, if they're delayed in talking a little bit later in life, then what's the harm? If they're able to communicate to you and you're able to understand them, then what's the problem? And a lot of these children communicate telepathically with their parents. I mean, I've read situations and even met a few situations where the parents would have these kind of thinking contests with the children, and the children would know when the parents wanted them, and they'd just come into the room, And I think we've all had similar instances when we were children, and you might have thought that your mom or your dad called you, and you run into the other room, and you're like, "Hey, did you call me?" And they were like, "No, but while you're here, let's let's do this." And the thing is they thought about you, at that point, and you just picked up telepathically. See, there's nothing. Every last one of us is psychic, and able to communicate telepathically, and we do on a subconscious level, and we're not really aware of it. And so the point of the indigo and the crystal and the star children evolution is not only to bring you into awareness, but also to let you know that you do have these experiences, and the moment you admit that you have these experiences, then you suddenly start to recognize them and recognize that you're experiencing them on a lot more frequent basis than what you originally thought.
1-877-528-8255 is toll-free. William Constantine is our very special guest. And William, just like to go back, we were talking about Jesus, and he was being an alchemist, and because he could turn water into wine. Would you say that Jesus was psychic?
Yes. I would, because I believe that, just 2 seconds ago I said that we're all psychic.
Yes.
So, and I think that as a follower of I'm not a follower of organized religion, but I work with Christ on an ascended master basis, because that's pretty much what he is. And there's a lot of things that Christ did. I mean, he predicted things in the Bible, but we tend to pass that off. Where was that in the Bible where he said that you shall deny me 3 times?
Mm-hmm.
Like he's constantly making prophecies throughout the Bible. There's the fact that he is like a big metaphysician as far as the way that he practiced alchemy, the way that he had a direct connection with God, and he was already aware that pretty much we were all one, and that we had the innate power to heal, and that when we act from love, that we can transform not only ourselves but the lives of the others that we touch, and I think at that point you have to realize that nobody at this point is actually following Christ, the Christ that is portrayed in the Bible, and the Christ that I know as an ascended master, which is far greater than what's actually portrayed in the Bible.
As an ascended master, how are you classified as an ascended master? Who categorizes these titles?
I'm not an ascended master. Christ is an ascended master. See, you have these beings that kind of do-gooders that, like Mother Teresa is now an ascended master. So now you have like these people who really were kind of like gurus at the time that they were living,
mm-hmm.
And now they've gone over to the other side, and their teachings have even expanded even more and into higher levels of dimensional of thinking. So what they do is they communicate to people on a regular basis, and they put forth this kind of this information from a higher level of thought. So yep, go ahead.
No, I was just going to ask you because you're considered to be on the same conscious level as Christ, the full Christ consciousness. So does this mean that you are on the same spiritual, consciousness level that Christ was?
Yes. I mean, this Christ consciousness basically means that you have the same the same knowing that Christ had when he was alive. So the knowing that everybody is one, and the knowing that acting from love and not from ego or anything that society, because from the moment we're born, society is filling our heads with negative thought and negative images of not only ourselves, but they put limits on us. And the moment you start limiting your potential is really the only that's you can only become as good as what you limit yourself to be. So, and you can't rise above that. So the moment you start capping off your potential, you can't rise above that. So now you've just limited yourself at, and you're a being of unlimited potential. Look at all the stuff that Christ did when he was here, and look at if we act from a place of love and we teach people that we all have a message within us, and that we all need to share this message. I mean, look at the stuff that you're doing. Just by bringing the radio show to I mean, I'm sure it didn't start off, as many countries as you're at now.
Oh, of course not. Yeah.
So, and now all of a sudden it's become this mass production, and you're bringing your message and your word and also the messages of your guests and stuff to a global audience. So I think that the kudos should be given to you for even attempting to do something like this, because for a lot of people, the thought that there's life on other planets and stuff like this, that's all fabricated, But there was a time and place where people didn't believe that angel communication existed. But look how popular it is now.
Big time, and more people are having angelic experiences and encounters.
Yep, absolutely, and that's the thing. And so it's like if you have to understand that how egotistical of us and naive of us to think that we're the only existence of life.
What about the fairies, for example? They've been around for, children read about them in their school books. They're in fiction. They're in movies. What were fairies?
I honestly think that first off, I'd have to say that I believe that fairies exist. So, because you have to stop and think that I think that fairies are going to be the next big level of angels. You see what I'm saying? Like, people are now all of a sudden, like you're saying, they're starting to come into the consciousness. Yeah. And you're starting to recognize more and more things, and now you have fairy tarot decks and all this other stuff, and there's even fairy Wicca, like a certain magic that is practiced, to help connect you with the fairies. And the fairies are really, some of them, they just don't like to be seen. You see, and so that's what's always reflected in these, in your fairy tales. Is that if you see a fairy, then some people go blind, some people, experience loss of memory, all this other stuff. And so when you get to this point of really opening your awareness and recognizing that there's a world parallel and within the universe that we're operating in, and that society has really put on these dark shades of blindness.
William, we've got to take a commercial break. William Constantine is our special guest, and this portion of the X-Zone is being brought to you by Secrets of Cat Attitude Revealed by